Hi there, everybody. This video will be very short because it is just this one slide. We talked about friction last week when we did our friction lab, so you should know that the friction is the force that resists motion between two surfaces that are interacting. If you go here to this link, should take you to this active GIF of him rubbing his hands together. So just for a little bit of fun there. But there are four main types of friction. They are static, sliding, rolling, and fluid. And the top three, static, sliding, and rolling, actually have to do with solid surfaces that are interacting or that are moving past each other. The final one, fluid friction, has to do with fluids, so gas or liquid, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. So of the four types, static friction is the strongest. This is the force that acts on objects when they are resting on a surface, and it must be overcome in order to move. So if you have ever tried to move a really heavy table or a dresser or something like that slide across a surface, or especially carpet, when you finally get that item to move, you have just overcome static friction. The next one is sliding friction. So this acts on objects when they are sliding over each other. If you've ever fallen off a bike and skidded over the ground or slid on the grass while playing a sport, you've experienced sliding friction. Rubbing your hands together is also an example. This is the next strongest type of friction. This seems pretty straightforward. Rolling friction then is the weakest type that occurs between solid objects. And this acts on objects when they are rolling over a surface. So anytime you're dealing with a wheel or a ball rolling over the ground or something, you're talking about rolling friction. Now, the thing with rolling friction is just because it's a weak type of friction does not mean that it's not useful. Think about pushing a grocery cart. Now, with all the stuff we pile into the cart, that it could get very, very heavy. Imagine trying to move that cart without the wheels. So we use the benefit of the weak rolling friction to more easily move objects from point A to point B, so like a shopping cart or your car or your bike. It can be easier to bike along a surface than to walk or to drag something. So we use this to our advantage when we're moving objects from point A to point B. If you've ever seen a dolly, movers propping a heavy item up on a little dolly that then they tip back and they roll items. A wheelbarrow. All of those are the same idea. Okay? And lastly, fluid friction acts on objects moving through a fluid. So if you've ever experienced windburn on your face from a really super windy day, your face is showing the consequence of having air go by your face really fast, and sometimes that can result in windburn. That's actually friction between the air and your skin. So sometimes that's not always great. But fluid friction does have its benefits. So if you've ever had a bike chain get, if the chain is too old, it might not have enough grease on it. You add some oil, and that can help ease the sliding friction by adding a layer of fluid in there, so that the solids can slide over each other a little bit more easily. So that's a practical application. This also has to do with vehicles as well. Speaking of vehicles, those of you getting your driver's licenses soon, there's always a question on the test about hydroplaning, and fluid friction is an example of that. So if you're driving along and your tire hits a puddle and it kind of goes crazy because the tire is actually rolling along the surface of the water. It's not actually reaching the road. This can cause the vehicle to kind of feel like it's being thrown from side to side. It can be very scary. And many students report that they've experienced this while their parents were driving. So it's just good to know that that's a possibility, especially now we're having lots of rain lately. So your next task is to go to the slides in Google Classroom, click here, and there will be an online textbook reading about this very topic. So that's it. There's nothing to turn in. And thanks for listening.